Hello, everyone. This is Jeffrey Kerr. The 2026 Tony Award nominations were recently announced, honoring the best of the 2025-26 Broadway season. Unlike my annual Oscar nominations reactions, what I'm going to be doing is highlighting several of the contenders I'm personally most excited about. So let's get started, shall we? If you've been keeping up with my work on Gold Derby over the past month, you should know that I've written several pieces that dig into potential history-making nominations, several of which ended up coming true. First being that June Squibb, at age 96, has become the oldest Tony-nominated actor in history for her performance in Marjorie Prime. She surpassed the record that was previously held by the 89-year-old Lois Smith for The Inheritance back in 2020. In Best Lead Actress in a Play, Rose Byrne became the 17th actress nominated for Oscar and Tony in the same calendar year. Following her Oscar nom for If I Had Legs I'd Cake You earlier this year, she's now Tony nominated for her performance in Roundabout's Theatre Company's current revival of Noel Cowart's Fallen Angels. Speaking of Marjorie Prime, one of June Squibb's co-stars, Danny Bursting, is nominated for his performance in the category of Best Featured Actor in a Play. It's his ninth nomination, which now makes him the most Tony-nominated male actor in history. Previously, he shared that record with Jason Robards with 8, but with the ninth nomination he got this year, it's a whole new record. Not to mention that for the first time since 2002, the category of Best Lead Actress in a Musical consists of all first-time Tony nominees. In 2002, the lineup consisted of Louise Petrie for Mamma Mia, Nancy Opel and Jennifer Laura Thompson for Urinetown, Vanessa Williams for Into the Woods, and the eventual winner, Sutton Foster for Thoroughly Modern Millie. This year, it consists of Sarah Chase for Schmigadoon, Stephanie Hsu for The Rocky Horror Show, Casey Levy for Ragtime, more on her later, Marla Mindell for Titanic, and Christiane Pitts for Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. So now let's get on with the contenders I'm most excited about. Our four nominees for Best Musical are The Lost Boys, an adaptation of Joel Schumacher's 1987 cult film of the same name, Schmigadoon, a stage adaptation of the first season of Apple TV Plus's cult musical television series, Titanic, a parody of James Cameron's 1997 film Titanic, told from the perspective and music of Celine Dion, and Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York, a completely original two-hander from London. Now, with Titanic in particular, I would really love to highlight one of its producers. After having spent the mid-1990s and early 2000s appearing on Broadway in the original casts of Sunset Boulevard and Sideshow, in addition to doing stints in Les Miserables and Spamalot, Lauren Kennedy has spent the past decade and a half running Theatre Raleigh, a local regional theatre company in my area. Now, she's just received her very first Tony nomination as a co-producer on Titanic. And I actually have interviewed her for BroadwayWorld way back in 2017. Thus, this is now the fifth year in a row where someone I've previously gotten in touch with for BroadwayWorld went on to become a first-time Tony nominee. Sidney DuPont for Paradise Square in 2022, J. Harrison Ghee for Some Like It Hot in 2023, Becca Brunstetter for The Notebook in 2024, Joy Woods for Gypsy last year, and now Lauren Kennedy for Titanic. Not to come off as a show-off, but even I gotta admit, that's a pretty impressive track record. For Best Play, the nominees are The Ballisters, Giant, Liberation, and Little Bear Ridge Road. Now, as a member of the American Theater Critics Association, I attended their annual conference in New York back in November. We actually did a session with the cast and crew of the now Pulitzer Prize-winning Liberation, which, in addition to Best Play, also received 4 other nominations. Those who participated were the nominated playwright Bess Wohl, director Whitney White, who's also nominated, as well as actresses Betsy Adam, who's also nominated, Susanna Flood, who's also nominated, and Crystal Lynn Lloyd. After the panel, I was standing nearby a couple fellow critics talking to Adam. She talked about how she grew up in Arizona but lived in North Carolina for a while. I responded with, I'm here from North Carolina, which she was delighted to hear. I also opened the door for her as she was leaving, which she then gave her thanks. That's cool. I had a brief but delightful interaction with a now two-time Tony-nominated actress, as Adam was previously nominated for A Prayer for the French Republic back in 2024. Now, for Best Revival of a Musical, the nominees are Cats the Jellicle Ball, a grand reimagining of Andrew Lloyd Webber's long-running hit Cats, Ragtime, and The Rocky Horror Show. Now, I actually did catch Ragtime back in November and was blown away, so I of course was happy to see it do very well nominations by receiving 11 overall. And meanwhile, I'm most happy to see two of the performances recognized in their respective categories. I first learned about Casey Levy through my former voice teacher, Lisa Knight. She had a friend who was making his Broadway debut in the 2009 revival of Hair. She was excited that Levy was going to be in it too, as she previously saw her as Penny Pinkleton in Hairspray and really loved her performance. It wasn't until 2014 when I saw her live for the first time as Fantine in the most recent revival of Les Miserables and met her at the stage door afterwards. In fact, I actually have video from my visit to the stage door here on my YouTube channel, which includes me meeting Casey Levy. So hey, thought I'd let you all know in case you're interested in checking it out. And from the moment I saw her as Mother in Ragtime, I hoped this would score her a career first Tony nomination, and it did. Meanwhile, Joshua Henry was a name I first learned about in 2011 through his first Tony nomination for his performance as Hayward Patterson in Kander Nebb's The Scottsboro Boys. When he was nominated again in 2014 as Flick in Violet, he revealed on Show People with Paul Wontorek on Broadway.com that his dream role was Coalhouse Walker Jr. in Ragtime. From there, I became intrigued by that idea. I first saw him live in 2016 as Noble Sissel in Shuffle Along, or the making of the musical sensation of 1921 and all that followed, and met him at the stage door afterwards. I saw him live again in 2023 on the Broadway cruise, where he even sang a song or two from Ragtime, and hearing that made me love to see him play Coalhouse even more so. Now he's killing it in the role night after night. Now on to some individuals I'd like to shout out. As someone who was born and raised in Northeast Ohio, I'm happy to see recognition for a couple fellow natives. Carrie Coon was a name I first learned about in 2013 through her first nomination for her performance as Honey in the Pan McKinnon helmed revival of Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. In fact, a few days after the Tonys that year, I came across an article from a local newspaper about how there was apparently a local tie to the ceremony. I read it to see what they were talking about, and it was that one of the nominees, Kuhn, was not only from Copley, but also went to college at Mount Union University in Alliance, about 15 to 20 minutes away from where I used to live. Since then, she's appeared in big movies such as David Fincher's Gone Girl and Steven Spielberg's The Post, in addition to earning Emmy nominations for her work in TV shows such as Fargo, The Gilded Age, and The White Lotus. Now, she's received her second Tony nom for her performance in the Broadway premiere of Bug, written by her husband Tracy Letts. Then there's Akron native Paul Tazewell. A legendary costume designer of the New York theater scene, he has won 2 Tonys for his work on Hamilton in 2016 and Stuff Becomes Her last year. He's also worked quite a bit in film and television, having won an Emmy for NBC's The Wiz Live, in addition to becoming the very first African American man to win an Oscar for Best Costume Design for his work on Wicked last year. Now he's received his 11th Tony nomination for his work on the recently opened revival of August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone. So that's just about does it for my reactions to this year's Tony nominations. I'll do my best to provide more coverage of the race within the next month leading up to the ceremony on Sunday, June 7th.